Fukushima releases nuclear wastewater again, this for the second time.
Since August 24th of 2023. This is the second time. Yes.
With this release of all this really hot nuclear wastewater. It kills coral reef, kills fish. It travels around the world in ocean currents. It has accumulation in shellfish. These poisons accumulate up the food chain, ending up in us. Not only that, this is crazy. Fukushima is a large fishing port.
Yeah, it just, I'm sure all these fishermen are just really happy with what's going on here. Japan is selling the fish, but guess where they're selling it to? I'll give you.
Well, they're not selling it to the pissed off fishermen that profits are plummeting worldwide.
No.
Hey, what?
I'm Ben Screwed.
I'm Ellie Stone, and we're the hosts of Screwed. So, who they selling to?
I'll give you one guess.
It's not China.
No, it's not China. That was your one guess. China refuses to import the fish and sell it to their countrymen.
Oh, yeah, communist China.
Yep. Still thinking? Well, let me give you a little guess. It's the United States of America. Yeah. Other countries. Basically, other developed countries like the Australia, France. We're just screwed. We're buying this stuff and we're screwed.
Screwed. There's been so many nuclear catastrophes and close calls. You know, look at St. Louis, Chernobyl in the 80s. If you were alive then, you remember that. It went all over the world, and it really saturated Europe. They got 3 Mile Island here in the U.S. in the 70s. Now, Fukushima was 2011. Now they're releasing twice now that stored crap into the ocean.
Well, let me answer this. Just with this Ukraine war with Russia invading Ukraine, there's Zaporizhia is the largest nuclear plant in Europe.
It's the largest?
The largest.
Holy.
And for the last 2 years, Russia's been bombing it and cutting off the power, and Ukraine says it's Russia doing it, and Russia says it's Ukraine doing it. But there is the largest nuclear power plant in Europe in the middle of a war zone. So yeah, it adds to these other things that have gone on in the 70s and the 80s and 2011, and yeah,
Do you know by the 70s or 80s, there was 1,000 close calls. I don't even know what it is now. It's got to be 3,000 or 4,000 close calls all over the world of a nuclear disaster. And I'm not kidding, folks. I am not kidding. It's in the thousands. I have data up until the 70s. It was well over 1,000. I would bet if you extrapolate numbers, it's probably up into several thousand by now. So you might want to check that out if you're curious. Let's not forget about our own nuclear testing in the West and the islands. Remember that?
Yeah, the Bikini Islands and out in Nevada.
Nevada, New Mexico, and Colorado.
They're saying that the fallout after that happened within 24 hours, the fallout went around the world, and people that are still living in those areas in the U.S. have not been compensated for the amount of radiation and cancers that they've had since then. There's not enough known to have nuclear power plants. And the number one thing that is not known about nuclear power plants?
What's that?
Is what to do with the nuclear waste. They don't know where to put it. Oh, they'll put it in drums, and either submerge them underwater or leave them up on the ground. But you know what kind of drums they put them in?
Metal drums.
Steel drums that rust and decay. And then you put a steel drum in salt water. What does salt water do to metal? Anybody has a car kind of knows. We don't know what to do with the waste. But we still have plenty of plants, and we're having wars around them.
I just want to shoot myself.
Well, you don't have to, because sooner or later the nuclear power plant waste will catch up to you.
Radioactive waste is just a nuclear nightmare. As I said, industry and military produce most of it. The countries that do the most of this...
local households aren't producing nuclear waste.
We want to be powerful in war. And
it's the military and the people in our infrastructure.
And we want cheaper power, but it's really not cheaper because it costs a shit ton to build these things, right? And you need engineers to run them. Who gets the contracts to build these things? We're in France, Britain, United States, Russia. Everyone
China's
does it.
Involved, yeah.
Well, yes, Asian countries producing this stuff for the military. Power plants are...
Yeah, let's keep producing it, even though we don't know what to do with the byproduct from it. It's kind of silly, isn't it?
It's bad enough to run a plant like that. Byproducts or not, people make mistakes.
It's called human error.
We cannot have something that's so dangerous. As a matter of fact, The mistake that happened over there in St. Louis, the guys who were the cleanup crew were not engineers. There was a leak, and they created the leak. They went there to do some work. He dropped a wrench. It ricocheted and damaged the tube that kept this stuff contained. There was a bunch of steam in the room, and they didn't know that this steam was radioactive. They're standing there. What do we do? So they left, but they didn't tell anyone for 30 minutes. Yeah, 30 minutes. These guys were not engineers. These guys were 18 and 19, so guess what? They didn't even go to college. And they're in there tightening stuff with heavy equipment, with big wrenches.
Okay, let me ask you this just real quick.
Yeah, can you believe this?
What was this nuclear container made of? That a wrench broke it, and it's in a nuclear plant. Was it made out of like paper? Or like a paper cup? Yeah,
it wasn't paper.
What was it made out of?
I don't know. They didn't
broke
say.
This thing.
I don't know.
Would not be broken by a pipe wrench falling on it.
Okay, they didn't say.
It's not a funny subject matter, but it's just laughable.
Anyway, that was a nuclear accident.
Human error.
And that was out in St. Louis. That's in the USA for you folks that aren't from America. You got to be kidding me. These guys are right out of high school around nuclear. A running facility. Okay, it's on. These guys are in there repairing it. They didn't tell the townspeople. They didn't tell anybody. And these guys didn't tell their supervisor for like 30 minutes. Tick, tock, tick, tock.
Well, they don't know what they don't know. Unfortunately, that's a problem we're having in this new environment that we're in. You don't know what you don't know if you're not trained properly.
Nuclear plant.
Well, you know.
Hey, Johnny.
Is it his fault? Grab that big wrench and follow me.
Yeah. Come on, let's go. You're what? You're a lot cheaper than an engineer. Hell, I had to pay him on call duty. Who knows? He's going to cost me $300 to come out here. You can cost me like $15. I'll add a few zeros to that estimate.
Well, it's human error. I can't wait with all this AI stuff going on, artificial intelligence. They're going to start using what was an AI error, and we really do apologize for that. But you've heard it first right here.
Well, AI is not perfect. We're just putting it out there on the web to learn from the web.
Yeah, we're teaching it.
Yeah, learn it. Yeah,
learn it from a bunch of humans that don't know what's going on. Yeah, grab that big wrench, buddy. Don't drop it around that paper cup, because that's where all the nuclear waste is at. On that coffee cup on the corner of the table. May as well be.
Moving right along, Britain is responsible for 80% of the contaminants over there on that side of the world. For 50 years, they've been dumping. They've already dumped 100,000 metric tons of waste. 100,000 metric tons. The Swiss are in second place. I don't even think they have a coastline to dump in. They would dumped over there. Dumped over into their neighbors. Jesus. 1993, United Nations Treaty forbade all submersions of nuclear waste. And, here again, military and power plants produce the nuclear waste. Nuclear power, it's just a disaster. For instance, in Hanford, nuclear waste was rinsed into the Columbia River, which downstream was everybody's drinking water. They never told the local families that they poured it right into the Columbia River, and people were poisoned.
Screwed.
In Hanford,
back in the 40s,
they dumped 15 billion liters into these trenches, okay? 3,500 hectares of soil was damaged. All the groundwater was also contaminated. The soil contaminated, water contaminated. The waste was in tanks. It was 1943 in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Anyway, they buried 1,900 tanks, not barrels, leaking tanks that contaminated the water table. And now it's one of the highest rates of cancer in the United States. There's major health defects, cancer, birth defects, meat from the animals was contaminated.
Well, once it gets in our food chain, once it gets into the soil, and then animals eat from the soil, we eat from the soil, and then we eat the animals. And it's just a matter of time before it's everywhere. And I believe since the Bikini Island testing in the 40s, testing out west in Nevada, this nuclear waste is everywhere. It's everywhere and in everybody's body already. We just got to try to figure out how to keep it out of our bodies in the future and from these leaking tanks and underground and underwater 55-gallon drums.
In the air.
Yeah.
By the way, do you know that they didn't really know what was going to happen when they set off the first nuclear bomb?
Yeah, of course not.
The team did not know.
How
the
could they
team
know?
leader did not know.
How could they? It was the first.
They actually, it's in writing
Oh, yeah.
that it might destroy the world.
Yeah.
Not put in such a way, but yes, they did not know.
When
what
you've
was
got
gonna
something
happen.
new, it's like voting a businessman into the presidency.
No,
like Donald Trump,
a little
and you
crybaby who
and you
inherited
don't know what's
everything.
going to happen until it happens. It's kind of like, if I had known that, maybe we wouldn't be in this situation. Maybe some people would not have voted for him. But yeah, when it's new, you have no idea what's possible. It's unfortunate, but yeah, we have to test it on somebody, and back then they tested it on Japan.
And us.
Yeah,
And
well,
us.
yeah, the testing was on us, and the actual bombing was on Japan.
Mhm.
Yeah, well,
It's amazing what's done to remain in power and for money. And they say, well, nuclear power plants are sustainable and they're green. No, they are the furthest thing from green.
the
People.
byproduct has to go
Yes,
somewhere.
it's not just that. If there is a disaster and you've got a plant that melts down, you have killed people and you have made many more people sick over the rest of their lives, and you have contaminated our soil, our air, and our water. Shame on you.
And if it's cheaper, having nuclear power, at what point
It's not cheaper.
after all this happens, this costs money. The waste costs money. It can be around for 200,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
How do they know it's cheaper? But it may not be cheaper to
I
actually
don't
have
know what
long
they're talking
term.
about. You know, in Hanford, that water table is contaminated for a long, long time. You know, and there's another incident in Mayak, Russia. Plutonium waste was dumped in the lake, and it moved down through the river into the river Techa. Okay, and there's a village there. And it moved into their water supply. It poisoned even the cows. Their milk is contaminated. The milk they drink from their grazing cows that eat the grass is contaminated. They're so contaminated that the government actually keeps tabs on these villagers, checks their blood all the time, is monitoring how bad they are contaminated and for how long, and in the offspring, if the DNA is changed and things of this nature. They are measuring these things in these people because it is so contaminated in that village.
Screwed.
Remember La Hague, France? They dumped waste directly into the English Channel. Okay? Yeah, English Channel. They measured it as far away as the Arctic. It affected the fish, seaweed, shellfish, mollusks, all contaminated and all measured. Okay? This isn't just someone talking out their ass. It was all measured. Toxins were also released from the site stacks, from the chimney stacks. And the people that live around that site are breathing in contaminated air. Well, let's dig in a little deeper to nuclear waste storage and nuclear waste reuse.
Okay, let's dive deeper into it.
Do you know that they move this stuff in trains? They call it separated uranium parts. SUP, SUP. Separated uranium parts. Move it from trains to Russia and the Netherlands to reuse. Can you believe this stuff? Thousands of miles by train and some by boat, and it could easily accidentally wreak havoc. Anything can happen during travel, right? Accidents happen. There's also a thing called sky storage or open sky storage. And what they do there is they put them in barrels, and it's just out like in an area in Siberia. And a plane, terrorists can come by and blow it to bits, right, and cause havoc all over the world. You could have lightning strikes,
Tornado.
earthquakes, whatever, right? It's just open storage, and that's what they do in Siberia. They're training, shipping, boating this stuff to Siberia to do this. You know, the kicker here is only 10% is really recaptured from all of this stuff. And there's an awful lot of dangers.
You got travel dangers, just, transporting something that is toxic. If there's any type of derailment on a train or a ship sinks or, you're going to have
What
trouble
about
with
just
that.
a leak that no one sees? That's what happened with Ebola. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, that wouldn't happen.
The pollution wreaks havoc in the water, in the air, in the soil, or even our oceans. And France, UK, and Japan think that's okay to use these open storage units that they're shipping to Russia, okay? They think that's okay to ship this stuff for hundreds and thousands of miles to Siberia, and it's just fine if a town dies, if a train is derailed and the town dies. It's okay. It's only one town. It's only 30,000 people. They'll be okay.
More of the thought has been put into clean energy, sustainable energy, cheaper energy, and never addressing the byproduct of this type of energy and the long-term storage of this energy and where we're going to store it at. That is, it's an easy out to just say, well, we're just sending it to Siberia by train.
Yeah. There's another brilliant way to store this stuff: spent fuel pools. Germany and the Swiss say no to those because of airplane crashes and terrorism as well. They're just a big pool that cool this stuff down, and it's pretty much open. I think some of them are all open, and some of them have like a steel building over them or something, right? It's quite accessible to terrorists or just some dumbass with a wrench.
Hey, Johnny, grab that big crescent wrench.
It's a hot day today. Let's go swimming.
Don't forget your wrench. He's got his tool with him.
Oh, man. And some of this stuff lives in the world, in the soil, the water, whatever. We're talking anywhere from 750 years to 200,000 years that it's dangerous. Not that just that it's detectable, that it is dangerous, depending on what element it is, from 750 to 200,000 years.
I wonder if they mark these containers what element is actually. No, it's a serious question. It sounds silly, but, do not open this one for 70,000 years or do not open this one for 200,000 years.
Funny you would mention that, because there are a lot of open fields without a monument or anything or even a building that says this is a contamination pit that has plutoniums or whatever in it, right? Put here and this date, this is a phone number you call, fenced in, right? No, some of these fields are just a dead field with nothing there, especially the older ones that were buried. The newer ones tend to be underground in the side of a mountain, but not all. And these older, if you can call them storage areas, these older pits were just put in some thick cement type capsule and put in the ground about 20 feet and covered with earth. Now, how are we going to know where that stuff's at 100 years, 300, 500 years? A lot of this stuff is hard copy. And for you young people, hard copy means it's not on a flash drive.
It's in a file cabinet
it's
somewhere.
It's in a file somewhere,
in the back of some closet.
Yeah, it's written on a piece of paper.
With a pencil.
Yeah. Well, they used pens back then, too. So we're basically mortgaging our future. Countries have regime changes, power changes, right? Soviet Union fell. Argentina was rich. Now it's poor. What do you think happens when a new power comes in and they don't know where this stuff's at? Or let's just say everybody dies. Who knows where something's buried?
I want to build a condo. You got some land to sell?
Yeah, I got this nice open field, not a tree on it.
For some reason,
not a tree on it.
Nobody has built here for like a long time. Maybe, we can strike a deal and, you can purchase it from me.
We're not going to know where they all are. Do you know we have some missing sites right now as I speak?
They're missing?
Well, yeah.
Where'd they go?
They ran away. Into the waterways.
They're missing.
They're in the groundwater.
No, they're missing sites. People don't know where they...
Shh, they're in the ground.
Wait a minute. They're missing sites? People put this stuff in the ground and forgot where they put it at?
Uh-huh. Can you believe that?
Oh, my God. No, please.
I'm not kidding.
No. I can't talk anymore.
I'm so sad. I'm laughing.
I can't talk anymore.
I am seriously, people. I am so sad about this that I'm laughing. But I think this is atrocious. It's an abomination. When people want to increase nuclear plants, right, all over the world, that's a decrease in solar development or other green technologies. That's a decrease in investment in those technologies.
Yes, because they're pouring the money into that as opposed to actually researching new possible ways.
Exactly.
Or bettering old ways.
Exactly. But the military doesn't want to use green. You know why? Because right now it doesn't have the power that coal, oil, and the nuclear stuff does, right? There's a lot more power in fuel, that kind of fuel, right?
Well, now there is, because they're not using any other resources because they don't know of any.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let's get back to the terrorists and the accidents. When you're hauling the waste all over the place, think about the accidents that can happen. Terrorists, we got some real nutbags in this world. I don't know what to do about it. Do you?
Yeah, I know what to do about it. Don't let them visit Mar-a-Lago, because Trump will probably spill the beans and tell them what's in what train going what way. We won't talk about subs, though. Just all joking aside, it is really sad that this has gotten to this point where we're creating something which is power by nuclear reaction and do not have any way to store or handle the byproduct from it, which is the waste, which doesn't dissipate for 200,000 years. Anyway, you had mentioned that we're mortgaging our future. Actually, we're not mortgaging our future. We're mortgaging your future, the young people of the United States and of the world.
Hey, we're not old. Hey, don't go. No. We're not old.
Well, I can guarantee.
We're just not
okay,
20.
I'll speak for myself.
We're just not.
It's the future of children on this planet who are going to be the ones who have to pay the price when this stuff comes.
The pollution, the water, the air, the soil. And hey, this isn't just waste. People, when you mine this stuff, it pollutes where you mine because you're uncovering it, right? All of these uraniums and whatever else they dig up. That's a pollutant when you dig it out of soil. It's in that rock. It's supposed to be there for a reason, okay? Then they take that and they put that in trucks to take it to the factory that extracts and creates the product, the end product, what we need. So we're mining the raw products, then we're transporting those, then we're put them in a place where we can actually make the fusion happen, and then that travels to where that's going to go, and then we build a big, huge, expensive place, towers, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, whatever, right? Who knows? So we build all these nuclear towers, plants, and then those are in production for 50 or 70 years, may or may not have an accident. They'll all have leaks, right? The Fukushima, before there was a disaster, had a problem with the radioactive stuff going into the ocean every time it rained, in case you didn't know that.
We're screwed.
Yeah, every time it rained before the accident, there was a problem. The engineers didn't take into account the mountain that was spewing water every time they had a hard rain to the ocean, because I guess they didn't learn in 5th grade that water runs downhill from the mountains to the streams into the low parts before it hits the ocean. And the reason Fukushima and all the other plants are by water is to cool them. When you cool them, you are destroying habitat. Radioactive waste and toxins, chemicals do get into the ground, do get into the water just by cooling it, because it's a circulation. So there's contamination before there's a leak, before there's an accident. Screwed.
Thank you very much for listening, and have a good evening.
Screwed.
You've been screwed.
And so have we.
Subscribe now to Screwed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or click the link in the show notes.